Chinese now love basketball and blue jeans, Chinese restaurants.
Trump lands in Beijing, and comment section today really exploded the moment the footage drops. Trump flew into Beijing on May 13th with Elon Musk, Jensen Huang, and Tim Cook sitting right next to him. Xi Jinping rolled out the full welcome, his vice president at the runway, a brass band playing, kids waving flags, and a red carpet laid out. The city's skyscrapers lit up with Beijing Welcome in big Chinese letters. Trump stepped off the plane, threw a fist pump, and got into his motorcade. Look at who he brought, and you already knew what this trip was about. Trade, tech, and deals he could fly home and brag about. The comment section exploded the moment the footage dropped. One netizen wrote that Trump does not speak for more than half of Americans, meaning they wanted the world to remember that a deeply split country sent this man to Beijing, and that matters. Another netizen wrote asking why unelected people were sitting in that room representing America, pointing straight at the tech billionaires next to government officials and asking who exactly gave them that seat. Inside the Great Hall, Xi went straight for Taiwan before anything else. He called it the single most important issue between the two countries and warned that getting it wrong could push both nations toward open conflict. China's state media reported Xi told Trump plainly, "Handle Taiwan the way China wants, and the relationship stays stable. Push back, and everything falls apart." One netizen wrote that Taiwan is a free people who never asked to be part of any backroom deal, meaning two powerful men in a fancy room have no right to decide that country's future. Another netizen wrote that this whole public meeting was just for show, meaning the real decisions never happen in front of cameras, and nothing serious was ever going to come out of this room. Xi's speech laid out a 3-year plan for what Beijing calls strategic stability. Trump talked about blue jeans, saying Chinese people love them now. One netizen wrote that the difference between both speeches showed clearly who the rest of the world will take more seriously, meaning Xi showed up with a plan while Trump showed up with small talk. Another netizen wrote that the way a leader speaks tells you everything about the country they run. No explanation needed. The point landed on its own. One netizen wrote asking why Trump dragged his whole team to Beijing with Elon Musk alongside them, meaning they saw Musk's seat at the table not as a business move, but as proof of who actually calls the shots in this White House. Another netizen wrote that billionaires got full representation in Beijing while ordinary Americans got none, meaning the people who actually feel the pain of US-China trade fights never got a voice, only the people who profit from those fights did. One netizen wrote that Trump showed up without a single career diplomat, that the goodwill America built over 2 centuries with other nations is gone, and that the US has walked away from leading the free world, meaning they saw this trip not as diplomacy, but as proof that American global leadership is over. On actual business, both sides talked about opening up more of China's market to American goods and getting China to buy more American farm products. Iran took up a big chunk of the conversation too. Both leaders agreed the Strait of Hormuz has to stay open, which matters because China runs on Middle Eastern oil and the US has been squeezing those supply lines. One netizen wrote that countries are already shifting toward China's currency and closer ties with Beijing after the Iran situation, meaning the summit changed nothing about a slow but steady move away from the US dollar as the world's go-to currency. Outside analysts called the result managed stability. Problems still exist, but both sides now have enough guardrails to stop things from blowing up the way they nearly did last year. An earlier truce had already pulled back the worst tariffs after US taxes on Chinese goods hit record highs and China shut off exports of rare earth metals in response. This summit ended with no signed deal and no joint statement, but both governments walked out saying it went well. One netizen called the whole thing hypocrisy. Another wrote that it will take 15 to 20 years before the gross overgovernor OPEC meets.